Hi, everybody. Thank you all for participating in our talk and discussion tonight. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. All right. So tonight's talk is on a poem. Excuse me. The poem is The Harmony of Difference and Sameness. This is an ancient Chinese poem. It was written in the 700s, about 500 years before Dogen lived, and before the Soto Zen school even existed in China. It's very important in our lineage, in the Soto Zen lineage. It was written by a Chinese Zen poet named Shitou. And Shitou also wrote the Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage, which we also chant along with this one. And Ben Connolly is very fond of the Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage and wrote this book about it. So the name the name of Merging of Difference and Unity, it's a translation of a Japanese word, Sandokai, Sandokai, which is 3 Japanese characters. San, S-A-N, Do, D-O, and Kai, K-A-I. So I read a lot about this poem from this book, Living by Vow. It was written by Shohaku Okimura, a Japanese Zen teacher who used to be the teacher at Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. And in this book, he translates the Sandokai and other poems that we chant and verses that we chant. So I don't speak Japanese, so what I'm going to share with you about the Japanese translation of the poem comes from Shohaku. So the word san from Sandokai means difference. So it means difference or diversity or variety or myriad things. It expresses the world we live in the aspect of it being composed of all different myriad things. We're all individuals and we're all separate. That's san. Do means sameness or equality or commonality. So it's expressing the aspect of the world in which everything is interrelated, including us. And there really aren't separate things that exist independently. Nothing exists independently. That's the aspect of our lives that's Do. And Kai means coming together in agreement. What Shohaku says is Kai refers to an ancient contract in China. Excuse me. When they had contracts for the sale of goods, they'd write the contract on a board of wood, and then they'd break it in half, and each person on the contract would get half. And then when the contract was performed, the goods were given, the 2 pieces will be joined together. And so that type of contract of joining things together is a Kai. So Sandokai is the joining together of difference and sameness, or the sameness of difference and sameness, or the unity of difference and unity. You kind of get the point. It's a poem that's talking about these 2 aspects of our lives and the worlds that we live in. On the one hand, we're all completely separate. We're all on our little screens on the computer, and we're all different people. We're all individuals. We can't share anything, right? Like, you will never know what it's like to be me. I'll never know what it's like to be you. I don't know what things taste like to you. You don't know what things look like to me. We're completely separate. On the other hand, we're completely interdependent. There's no thing that's me, separate from everything else in this world and universe, apart from, it's separate from anything else, in the sense that I can never locate anything that's myself. If I examine my experience, all I can find is this experience of this moment, of just this. And I can't find anything that's separately me. And I assume the same is true for you. And I can't live without everything else in the universe, right? We're all interconnected. So it doesn't make sense for me to think of myself as something separate and discrete from everything else that is part of the world. It's all interconnected. So that is the reality of our lives, is that we're both completely connected and completely independent. And that's what the poem is expressing. Shohaku says that we are emerging of difference and unity, so that our whole life is 100% independent and different and separate, and it's 100% dependent, interdependent, interconnected. There is no separateness, right? They're both true, and it's a paradox. But there it is, that's our life. And one way that helps me to kind of get a glimpse of this is from physics, where you have quantum mechanics describing our physical world from one point of view, and it's accurate in the sense it works. And then you have Einstein's theories of relativity describing gravity and space-time and large objects. And these two theories are inconsistent. They both work, and they both describe the same reality. The quantum reality isn't different from the reality of large objects. And same with the Buddhist take on our lives and reality. The reality of our lives of being completely interdependent isn't to negate the fact that we're also completely individual. And Suzuki Roshi, who was Tim's teacher, would express this. He would use the phrase, things as it is. And Tim would say they thought he was mistranslating words into English, but he meant it, things as it is. So things, plural, as it is, singular, both together. So let's look at his poem, Shitou's poem. I can bring it up. So he says, the mind of the great sage of India is intimately transmitted from west to east. While human faculties are sharp or dull, the way has no northern or southern ancestors. And what this is referring to is in Shitou's time, he was part of the southern school of Buddhism. Let's see if I can share this chart I made. So Shitou, down here, was part of the southern school of Buddhism, and there was a northern school of Buddhism. And the northern school was considered the gradual enlightenment school. It was for people that were really smart. And Shitou was from the Huineng school, which was the southern school. That was the sudden enlightenment school. And there's a famous story about when Hongren, the fifth ancestor of Zen, was trying to pick his successor. Both Jinshu and Huineng wrote poems. Jinshu's poem was really good, and it was about the need to practice and polish the mirror, get rid of the dust that's afflicting us, polish the mind. Huineng was illiterate and just asked someone to write a poem for him on the wall, and his take on it was, what mirror? There is no mirror. There's nothing to polish. So these are two aspects of approaching our lives. And Shitou, who wrote this poem, is from the Southern School. We are from the Southern School too. Both Soto Zen and Rinzai Zen come from the Southern School. And so the first couple of lines from his poem are saying, there is no Northern or Southern School. And then he says, the spiritual source shines clear in the light. The branching streams flow on in the dark. So spiritual source refers to the point of view of interdependence or emptiness or sameness. Light refers to the aspect of things being different and independent, of separateness. And that's because you can think of it as when there's light, you can see the various things. And then he says, the branching streams flow on in the dark. So branching streams represents difference, the myriad things. Everything is independent. And the dark represents unity, sameness, or emptiness, where there aren't separate things. And he's saying that we're talking about the same reality. So the spiritual source, emptiness, shines clear in the world of separateness, conventional reality. And the world of conventional reality of separate things is an aspect of the world of emptiness, or it is the world of emptiness. It's the same thing. And then he says, grasping at things is surely delusion. According with sameness is still not enlightenment. So grasping at things is surely delusion. He's talking about if we just attach to the ordinary world of difference, everything is different, including us being all individuals. If we take that as real in the sense that we attach to it, that's delusion, right? That's a kind of basic Buddhist teaching, is to see non-duality, to see that things don't exist independently, everything is interconnected. So if you're grasping at things as if they're real and separate, that's delusion. But then he says, according with sameness is still not enlightenment. So letting go of our discriminating mind is good, but it's not the end of the story. We don't cling to emptiness and act as if the ordinary conventional world is delusion. We don't cling to separateness as if there isn't emptiness, and we don't cling to emptiness as if there isn't difference. And what Shohaku said is, and I've heard this from other Zen teachers, is that to wake up is to try to see both, or is to see both emptiness and the world of separation at the same time, because they're both expressing our reality. If you only see one side of things, then you're going to have problems in your life. So we can see it now. If all you see is the world of separation, separateness, you're going to be hoarding things because all you can see is yourself as a separate individual. At the same time, if all you see is emptiness and you think that separate individuals don't really exist, you're not going to take care of yourself. You're not going to do things you need to do to survive. And then later on, Shitou says, in the light there is darkness, but don't take it as darkness. In the dark there is light, but don't see it as light. Light and dark oppose one another like the front and back foot in walking. So there's no such thing as light without dark, and there's no such thing as dark without light, right? Like you can't have the idea of light without having the idea of dark. And you can't have light as a phenomena without having not light. If it were just light, it wouldn't be anything if there weren't also dark. So light only exists in relationship to dark. And that's true of everything, every object of our mind. Every object of our mind, everything, every idea can only exist because of the existence of things that aren't it. And that's true for life, right? There's no such thing as life if you don't have death. What would life be if there was no death? It wouldn't be life. So life and death depend on each other. They're in a sense one thing. That's true for nirvana and samsara. If you think of nirvana as a separate thing, then there has to be something that's not nirvana. There has to be samsara. And so from this teaching, any dichotomy that we come up with is a false dichotomy from the point of view of absolute reality, because we're just dividing up this whole, just this, that we really can't understand with our minds into separate concepts, so that it's always going to be a little bit off. And one nice thing about this teaching is what it's saying is that we don't have to leave this world of suffering and delusion and samsara to experience nirvana. That samsara is part of nirvana. It's all wrapped up together. Samsara exists only in nirvana. Nirvana only exists inside samsara. And it's the same thing expressed with Dogen's famous teaching that practice is enlightenment. You can't have enlightenment without delusion. So what this means for us is that we don't wait and try to fix everything until experiencing nirvana or enlightenment. We wake up each moment. Then Shitou says, if you don't understand the way right before you, how will you know the path as you walk? Progress is not a matter of far or near, but if you are confused, mountains and rivers block your way. So I think what he's getting at is don't be attached to words and ideas, because this isn't about intellectual understanding. It really can't be understood with our minds because it's a paradox. They can't both be true. Our world of difference and sameness can't both be true, but they are both expressing the reality of our lives. We can't grok it with our heads. We can't be so attached to these concepts. What we can do is practice. This is pointing us toward a way of living, not a way of thinking about things. It helps us. I mean, it's also a way of thinking about things, but if we get caught up with these ideas of emptiness, nirvana, enlightenment, whatever, you're going to be confused, right? So Shitou is saying, understand the way right before you. It's right in front of us. It's always right in front of us. And then he says, I respectfully urge you who study the mystery, do not pass your days and nights in vain. And this used to be translated as, don't waste time. So what does it mean? He's telling us not to waste time. What does it mean to waste time? How can we not waste time? We waste time when we worry about the future. We waste time when we attach to our ideas about the way things should be. The way we don't waste time is practicing zazen, practicing meditation, letting go of our narrow fixed ideas about things and experiencing just this. And taking that approach, that Zazen mind with us through the day. That's not wasting time. When we accept the way things are and don't suppress them, don't wish they were different, but just fully accept the way things are right now as they are and see them clearly and deeply feel them, and then let them go on their own without pushing them away and just return to just this, we're not wasting our days and nights in vain. So our practice is to keep doing that, to keep letting go and returning to just this moment after moment. We can always tap into this sense of peace and quiet moment by moment. So I think Shitou is saying to us, don't wait until you figure this stuff out. You can't figure this stuff out. We can't understand this. We can't understand our lives. Don't wait until you're enlightened. Don't wait until you fixed yourself, right? Don't wait. It's not like I will meditate, meditate, meditate. I will then become really good, and then I'll be at peace and everything will be perfect. That's wasting time. Not wasting time is waking up right now. It's letting go of our neurotic afflictions right now and returning to just this. So we also don't wait until these times of quarantine and craziness are over, right? Right now we're faced with this uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. Our lives are always uncertain. We never know what's going to happen, but now it's really stark. So from the point of view of emptiness, our lives are always steady. Like if we just let go and return to just this, there's certainty and security. If we're worrying about the future and having our calmness and peacefulness depend on what's going to happen in the future, like when is this going to be over? Whatever we can substitute, whatever we can put in there, if we wait until that is resolved, until we are at peace, we're never going to be at peace. The only real peace is letting go and returning to just this. And we do it on a moment by moment basis. We're always doing this. And this doesn't mean that we don't try to make things better. We don't prepare. We don't worry. We have to worry, right? If we don't worry, we're not going to survive. But we don't have to be attached to our worry. We can always let go and return to our Zazen mind and return to just this. So I think Shitou is talking to us from the 700s, right? He's saying, I respectfully urge you who study the mystery. That's us. We're studying the mystery. He's saying, don't pass your days and nights in vain. So let's not pass our days and nights in vain, right? Let's fully experience what's going on right now. That's all I have to say. So